What's going on? Thanks for tuning in. This is my first video, so bear with me a little bit. We're gonna try to get through it, see how it goes. I want to start off by saying that I'm starting this channel because when I first started fishing, I didn't have a boat and I didn't get a lot of opportunities to get out in the water. And YouTube was a really great resource for me, and I'm hoping that I can kind of provide some insights to people that don't get as much time in the water, or people that do have a lot of time in the water and just are looking for other perspectives. So hopefully I can do that for you and give you a thing or two that you can take away and help you be a better angler. I'm a co-angler, so I'm fishing the Piedmont and Shenandoah divisions this year. I'm also going to hop in on the Chesapeake for the Northeast division. So most of my videos are going to be from a back of the boat perspective, but I'm also going to try to bring others on to talk about their day, whether it's a co-angler or a boater. For example, I'm going to be bringing on David Grant today to talk about his perspective of this tournament. All right, enough chit chat. Let's get into it. This week, we're going to be covering Smith Mountain Lake BFL on March 4th, and then also a little bonus coverage of Lake Anna on Sunday, March 5th. Smith Mountain Lake, Southwest Virginia. It's an awesome lake. It's been good to me, knock on wood. So my buddy David Grant and I went down on Wednesday night. He's a boater, so he brought his boat with him, and we practiced Thursday and Friday. Practice was tough. There was definitely not a lot of fish moving up, with the water temps being upper 40s, maybe hitting 50, 51. The first real clue that we got of what was going on in the lake was on Thursday. We pulled up to a main lake point around the state park. So this is the point on Navionics, and we kind of started on this side of the point. There wasn't much wind blowing on it, but we tried throwing an A-rig, we tried cranking it, we tried throwing a jerkbait up kind of on top of it, on the sides of it. And we worked our way around to about this area over here, and I turned around and took my Megabass +1 Junior and threw it back out the back of the boat into the deeper water about in this region right here. You can see it's like this is out there. And I reel down, jerk it once, and it gets hit. And I get in the boat. It's a 15, 16 incher, a solid keeper. And so David turns the boat around, pans around with his live scope to about where I caught it, and he goes, dude, there's 5 or 6 of them just sitting there. And so he takes his jerk bait, slings it out there, reels it down, one jerk, and one of them goes shooting up at it on live scope. And he puts it in the boat. It's a 3-pounder, so a really quality fish. So I think this kind of clued us in that a lot of these fish were still kind of in their winter mood, suspending out in that deeper water. And on tournament day, so like I said, there was no wind while we were going over this point originally, so we were able to turn around, pan around with the live scope, look. But on tournament day on Saturday, we're supposed to get 20 to 25 mile an hour winds. So David was like, you know what, there's no shot I'm coming out here on the main lake and live scoping these fish. Maybe I could come by and the wind will be blowing hard enough that they'll be pulled up on it. But Friday we went ahead and just kind of tried something different. We went into more of the pockets with that had some rounded points, a little flatter, preferably some rock on them. And while panning around on live scope, we saw a couple fish scurrying around on them, so that was a good sign. At least they were around. And then I even put this fish in the boat right here on a rock crawler. He was not right up on the bank. He was maybe 20, 25 feet off the bank. But like I said, it was pretty flat, so it's not like it dropped off too quick. And I was just cranking it along the bottom slow. So I think that gave David some confidence that if the wind was blowing the way it was supposed to on some of these flatter rounded points in these pockets, that he could probably pluck a few fish every now and then. So we decided to just call it a day. It was raining. We just wanted to get dry. And honestly, it wasn't worth getting too dialed in on anything when the weather was going to be completely different the next day anyways. Friday night, I get my boater. He tells me that we're going to stay down lake in the clear water. And my immediate thought was, I'm going to throw an A-rig all day in the wind down in that clear water. With the wind blowing, it should be perfect. I should be able to sling that thing all day and at least get a few bites. So I'm excited. I'm not overly optimistic because the bite in practice was so tough, and I figured that's not just going to flip and change overnight. But knowing that I was going to be down lake in the clear water, that's where my confidence lies at Smith Mountain Lake. So I at least felt like, you know what, I got a shot at this thing. So finally, it's tournament day, Saturday morning. We are in flight 2, so we take off. We were about 50 something, and we stay down lake, like you said. We pull into our first spot. It's kind of just this little pocket, but to my surprise, we stayed out of the wind completely. This pocket was totally flat, no ripple in the water or anything, and I immediately kind of thought, this could be tough. If this is kind of what we're going to run all day. My boater was definitely targeting some of the suspended fish using his live scope, and so he was not necessarily fishing the docks. He was sort of fishing them, but more power fishing them, and then targeting fish that were more suspended off the docks. So I didn't really think there'd be any fish on docks, just from practice and just with the water temp. I mean, I think that morning it was 47, 48 in the pocket we were in. But I had to keep it honest. I threw a drop shot for the first hour at the front posts of all the docks we went by with no luck. And about after an hour, he puts this fish in the boat. And you can see that he is pointed back out towards the middle of the lake. So he saw this fish on live scope and caught it. And again, I'm thinking in my mind, like, I am in big trouble if we're going to stay out of the wind and he's going to use his live scope to try to find fish. And this is where the mindset of a co-angler comes in. I can tell you from experience that I've never gone into a tournament the night before being like, I'm going to catch him doing this, and then the next day my boater put me in a situation where I caught him the way I thought I was going to catch him the night before. It's never happened. It'll probably never happen to you. It'll probably never happen to me. With that being said, one of the most important things as a co-angler is just to have a good attitude and keep an open mind. I know some of the first events I did, halfway through the day, I didn't have any fish. Maybe I thought we should be fishing something else because as anglers, we all think we know where we should be fishing all the time. We're all guilty of it. And once you get that bad attitude, your day's done. You're not gonna have fun. You're probably not gonna catch any fish. So yeah, that's my little rant for you guys about co-angling, because that's also what makes it so exciting too. You get put in new positions, so you got to figure it out. And I've learned to enjoy that now. Like, gives me opportunities to try new things. I also get to watch my boater. And obviously the boaters vary in skill level, but I can tell you that I've learned something from every single boater I've had. So take advantage of that. Watch your boater, try to learn, and then whatever situation you're put in, just do your best, try to make the right adjustments. So I decided that the adjustment I needed to make was, don't worry about the docks. I'm gonna stick a 3.3 in my hand, and I'm gonna stick a +1 junior in my hand, and throw those around and fish for suspended fish too. He can't see them all. There's fish swimming around. That's how it works. These fish that are suspended, now that we have live scope, we can see these kinds of things. They're not just sitting there stationary. They are swimming around. So if I'm casting around a +1 junior, I'm casting around a 3.3. If we get around like kind of some points with some rock on it, I'll sling that rock crawler out there. And I think those 3 options are really gonna give me my best chance. Another half hour goes by and we start working our way towards the back of a pocket. This is not the actual pocket we were in because it's not really my position as a co-angler to be giving up where my boater is fishing. But this is a very similar looking pocket, back of a pocket. And you can see here that you've got a pretty defined gut. And a lot of times in this pre-spawn situation, you'll get a lot of fish that'll suspend in these guts. I've seen personally this winter that there has a lot of smaller males that get in the back of these pockets in these guts. And the funny thing about that is that they're always fat. And I've been trying to figure this out. Like, how are these fish just hanging out in the back of these pockets, these little males, and getting fat? Like, what are they feeding on back there? And the only conclusion I could come to is that these little males could just hang out in the back of this pocket where they're safe in the gut. And on days where the wind blows one direction, or for whatever reason, the striper and the bigger bass are pushing shad in the back of the pocket, they're just sitting there waiting for it. So I see an opportunity where I can pick up my +1 junior, make the longest cast I can straight down the middle of this gut, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I can pick up a 14-incher and get on the board for the day. But I'm gonna go ahead and run this clip and let you watch it.
Got him.
That one? Nice. Oh, you're good. Jerk bait?
Yeah.
Come on, stay pinned for me, buddy.
Feels like a good fish, actually.
It looks like one.
Think maybe we could back up towards it a little bit? Thank you. I just hope it's a striper.
He ain't running like a striper.
Come on, stay pinned for me, buddy.
Closer.
Yep. He's coming up. Is that a catfish? No way.
Big smallmouth, big smallmouth.
Yes, sir.
Buddy. Oh, him to come off in the net.
Holy shit. That's
Good job, man.
Thank you. That's random.
Yep.
Oh my god, thank you for backing up and doing that. I really appreciate that.
Glad you got him.
Dang. You think that's 5?
He's 4, easy.
It's definitely 4. My god. Which one did you put yours in?
I put it in this side.
Okay.
Put it in that side, but I do have my cold tag thing in there.
Okay.
Big small jaw. I don't know what he was doing back there, but I will definitely take it. Sometimes you just got to get a little bit lucky. One thing I want to mention about that +1 junior too is that it comes with really small hooks on it. They're actually not bad hooks, but I like to take these G-Finesse nano-coated hooks, size 6, and throw them on that +1 junior. And it'll actually give it a very, very slow sink. And they're just stickier hooks. They're bigger, they're stickier. I just feel that it gives me a better chance to land fish and also get bites. So another hour goes by, we don't catch any fish. We both got one fish in the boat. I've got that good smallmouth. He's got a solid largemouth, like 2.5 pounder. And we pull into this pocket. We fish the left side, we don't catch anything. We fish the back, we don't catch anything. And as we're coming back out this side, he starts whacking them. And
Huh? Huh?
It doesn't feel that big, but it's on a spinning rod. You never know.
Yeah, it could be a good one. Be close. Smallmouth.
Might be. You got to be 14 too, right?
Yeah.
I don't
think he did.
There's one.
Another one? Let's go. Huh?
Oh, you just hooked one.
Oh, yeah, you got it inside. It's good fish though. Yes, sir. That's another good, dude. That's probably your biggest one. Another one? Good one.
It's bad. I'm up with bad.
Yeah, it's not sounding
Sounds like
good.
a striper to me.
Yeah, come on, Pagan. Dude, I don't know. That's fast, dude. Let's go. Yes, sir! Let's go!
Thank you.
And this was the biggest learning point for me because, like I said earlier, I'm big on fishing the wind, especially in this pre-spawn time of the year. And the wind was blowing on this side over here into these floating docks and then across the top of this point. We're over here. There's no wind. There's some floating docks, but I mean, the sun's beaming down on it, no wind. I'm thinking, dang, if we can just get to this top of this point and around the other side, I can pull my A-rig out and start catching them. But before we even get to the top of the point, he starts putting some fish in the boat. So after we fish that side for a little bit, we actually go up to the top of the point where the wind's actually blowing over it. And I'm thinking, you know, gosh, if there's fish sitting over here, they should be sitting up here too on the other side of this point. And we don't catch anything. And then we go around the side of the point, hop on the big motor to the back of the little corner here, and we come up this side that's got the wind blowing on it. And I pull out my A-rig and I throw it on the floating docks and stuff, and I don't get bit. And again, this is where I was like kind of stunned. I was like, I really misread how these fish would set up on this in this situation. The only thing I can really think of is that these fish were probably cold. They didn't want to be out in that wind, and they don't really need to sit out in that wind if they can sit on this side of the point and suspend. I would imagine suspending up in the water column with the sun beaming down. They're probably enjoying that heat, as well as they know that if the bait's getting pushed over the top of this point, that bait's gonna swim into this pocket, and they're just gonna be right there waiting for them. So it's kind of a killing two birds with one stone for them. That's all I can really think of is why they would be in there hanging out like that. They're getting to warm up, and they have a potential food source without expending any energy. Like I said, we fished all around this point, didn't catch anything else anywhere other than that one little stretch on the calm side. And so we move on to the next pocket, and my GoPro dies. And I'm at a point where I've got one fish. I'm trying to stay in the moment. I'm trying to stay locked in. I need to put more fish in the boat. So my last concern was switching out the batteries while I could be making cast. And he actually puts another fish in the boat here, a good solid fish. And so we keep working our way through the pocket, and we get to about here, and you can see it's kind of like a V point in the back of this pocket, and there's a dock right here. Now as we're going by, he fishes down the side of that dock. I pick up my A-rig. There's a little bit of wind on it. It's not necessarily getting hit with the wind, but the wind was so strong that it was actually swirling in the back of this pocket. So there was a pretty good ripple on top of the water. So I pick up the A-rig and I throw it right down the side of this dock. I'm reeling it out. I personally like to give little reel twitches to try to make it look a little more realistic. So I give it a real twitch. I'm reeling it out, and right as it gets past the end of the dock, it gets stopped. And I set the hook, and it does not move. It does not move at all. Right away, I go, it's a big one. And I didn't waste any time getting this fish in. I had 20-pound test on my 7'9" medium heavy, and I horsed him into the net. I'm disappointed I didn't have my GoPro going, but I'm also excited that I don't have to re-watch myself celebrating, because it was probably pretty cringy. I was pretty fired up. But you know what? It was a 6-pound, 3-ounce largemouth. Tied for big fish. I think that was actually my new biggest fish, believe it or not. I know that's pretty sad, but that's why I was pretty fired up. So at this point, it's about 11 o'clock, and that's the last bite we get the whole day. We don't get another bite from 11 to, I think our check-in was 3:15. We stayed kind of still in that same sort of area. We moved a little further back into the creek, and I think with the heavy rain the night before, and it also being cold rain, the water temp dropped a little bit. It was a little murky. I just think it was just a little off. So we didn't catch any in the back of that creek. We left that creek, made a little bit of a run. We still stayed down lake in some clear water. We didn't really get any action until sort of towards the end. I had a nice little smallmouth follow my rock crawler up to the boat. I don't know if it had seen it in the middle of the water column or what happened, but followed it up to the boat, didn't eat it, which wasn't surprising. Usually you want that thing on the bottom, and that's when they're going to get it. But yeah, it's pretty uneventful the rest of the day, and I'm going to bring David on and let him talk about his day, which is super interesting because he actually gets on a later in the day bite. So he had a pretty slow morning, had a really good afternoon, whereas we had a pretty good morning and then a super slow afternoon. So it's pretty interesting to compare and contrast that kind of stuff.
So I finished up the tournament in 4th place. I finished with 10 pounds, 9 ounces. Tied for big fish with a 6-pound, 3-ounce largemouth. And I also had a 4-pound, 6-ounce smallmouth in my bag. So 2 big ones. Definitely would have helped if I could have put a couple keepers in the boat, but definitely still a good outing. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about trying to go for a co-angler of the year at this point. I mean, that's a good start. I just got to keep backing it up with good performances. And I think I can make it happen. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on David Grant, let him talk about his tournament on Smith Mountain, and then also let him talk about Lake Anna on Sunday.
All right, guys, we got the hammer, David Grant himself. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Let us know what you're fishing this year, and kind of maybe lead you into practice.
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name is David Grant. Me and Brandon kind of grew up, fishing ponds together when we were little and stuff, but it's kind of been, a passion of ours ever since. But yeah, no, I'm trying to jump in a few of the BFLs this year and just fishing some, smaller local, club tournaments around like Anna and stuff when I can. But we fished. So me and Brandon went up to Smith for the first BFL. Um, that was that one was on March 4th, and only had 2 days of practice, so I'll kind of start there. But we went up there, and the weather during practice, I only got to fish about half a day the first day, and I think I caught maybe 2 fish. One cranking pretty shallow, and it just didn't really seem like that bite was quite there yet. The water was still 50, 51, and it just didn't seem like there was going to be a lot of fish like on the bank yet, like just yet. Like it probably needs a couple more weeks and some really like warm, consecutive warm days, warm weeks, and just those right sunny days to get those fish kind of shallower because the water's just temp's just not there yet. So I really thought I could do that, but it just didn't really seem like it would be a really good deal because I tried that for about half the day for the first day, and I kind of started up past Hales Ford Bridge, and when I got up there, I realized that the water was already really stained, and we were supposed to get a big rain on Friday, which we did. So I'm sure me thinking that I just didn't feel comfortable fishing up in that dirty water because I knew on Friday. So leading into Friday, we went out. So Brandon was not able to practice on Thursday, but he came out with me on Friday for a little bit, and it was just pouring all day. I mean, I think we were off the water by maybe 1 o'clock. It was just pouring on us all day. It just really wasn't worth it. Just to get all of our stuff wet, boats soaked. So we got back, and the one thing we did kind of find out on Friday was that there is still a lot of fish like out suspended, like off points. But it was fun to mess around with those fish in practice. You could live scope them, and you could see like little groups of fish, and they shoot up at your jerk bait. But you know, for the tournament, it was going to be blowing, it was blowing 35 miles per hour. And, it's just impossible to sit out there and try to do that stuff. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. I had mentioned because I got out there for an hour on Thursday. That's kind of when we saw them suspending out off those points, and I talked about that a little bit earlier.
yeah.
Um, because the second day we did kind of shift our focus a little bit to see if we could find some fish on some more and you could talk about that too, because I know that kind of came to fruition in the tournament for you. But we were checking out some smaller, like flatter rounding points Friday in the little bit of time we had, and we did see some fish like scurrying around on the top of those points.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I got it all mixed up because it kind of all meshed together. But yeah, so on Thursday, I forgot you came out for a little bit. It was only like an hour. But on Friday, yeah, we did. There were some of those in it leading into the pockets. So like, getting into like a bigger pocket, and it had some of those like flatter round points you're talking about. We could see the fish up on top of the points on live scope. And, you know, I really think they were bass because they were on the bottom and they're kind of crawling. But I couldn't get really any of those fish to go during practice. I actually tried some of those points in the tournament, and I couldn't get them to go either. But, you know, that was kind of up around the state park. Um, and so I actually, that's really mainly practiced, but it actually turned out in the tournament, I actually didn't really fish there at all.
Yeah, so if you want to go ahead and talk about kind of the start of the day, you said you didn't catch any there in the tournament. Um, just kind of talk about how you went through your day, because yeah, it was a little slow for you at first, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, so I I actually ran up and I fished around the state park, around the big like S turn. Um, and I pulled into one pocket that we kind of practiced in. I think you caught one there in practice, kind of messing around with me on Friday. Um, but it was the wind was whipping. I mean, it was whipping in the morning, and it was whipping like, I mean, it was blowing really hard. So I mean, the first thing that I thought I was gonna do was, I just got to pick up the A rig and just go throw it around a little bit because it's blowing really hard. So, I fished around in there a little bit, but I started focusing on some of those little rounder points. And the first little round point I pulled up on, I threw across the top of it. And I'm not throwing up on the bank. I'm really trying to put that A rig out off the break of the point. So kind of where that last contour is meeting the bottom. So that, winded off that first point, 1-8 it. So that kind of clued me in. That was only about 9 o'clock. So that was still pretty early.
I'm still here.
You're back. Yeah, so that I got a keeper in the boat, and it's probably, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and that definitely calmed me down a little bit and settled the nerves. It got a fish, but that kind of told me, it's going to be a grind today, and it's going to be blowing really hard. So kind of just got to go, just fish. So I think at that point I said, all right, I'm just going to turn off live scope, and I'm just going to go down the bank, and I'm just going to fish, you know, little points that leading in the pockets and stuff. And I ended up leaving that area and I ran all the way down to Blackwater. And I pulled up, first spot I stopped on Blackwater. Little, it's a big channel swing bank, so it had really deep water that, goes from like 80 feet all the way up to like 10 feet on top of a point. And, first cast across that point, one locked it up. So there's a 2.5 pounder in the boat. There's 2 fish. So I was like, all right, things are starting to happen. And then kind of fished into the pocket a little bit. I was like, all right, well, the wind's blowing into this pocket. There's a lot of sun in this pocket. And I really felt, getting around the sunniest banks and would be a big player for me. So I kind of fished into the back of the pocket. Actually ended up catching one kind of into the back of like a little pocket in the it was like a bigger arm. But I actually caught one like in a little nook of a pocket, I guess. So that's 3 fish. Kind of fished around there for a little while. Didn't really know what to do. I think my co-angler caught one in there too. I ran out of there and I kind of messed around, for a little bit, but I kind of felt like there was fish in that area. So I ended up going back and I fished the same areas. I had a few missed opportunities.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about that a little bit. Tell them about your A-rig setup and some of those missed opportunities, because that's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah,
And you kind of blew it. Honestly, that was your fault.
yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, I fished up Blackwater. Like, I mean, the day progressed. I mean, I had a late check-in, so I didn't get back in until 4 o'clock. So I did fish up Blackwater a little bit further, but the further I got, it was just really blown out, and I didn't feel comfortable. Like I needed to have like a little bit of clarity for that rig, but I wanted to also have, like somewhat of a stain. But yeah, no, I mean, one chance I had, I was I was up in Blackwater and I had one try to eat it at the boat. It tried to eat the rig right at the boat, and I think it ate one of my dummies because I hit him as hard as I could, and I didn't get a hook in him.
That's what I'm
So
talking about, though. Tell them about what you did with your dummies.
well,
The color of them.
I think one of my dummies was a different color than all the other ones uh by user error. I think I was being that was me being lazy. Yeah, and I missed 2 fish during the day. So I mean, I had one try to eat at the boat and he missed it. And then I had one later in the day, probably around like 2:30, you know, just knock slack in it, and it didn't get the bait. And it probably ate the dummy that first I just I didn't think I was going to throw the A rig. And I was lazy and I didn't take the time to set it up how I should have set it up. And it definitely missed two big opportunities where instead of having what I did, I probably could have been, well, we'll get into that later, but I
Yeah.
missed two good ones on it. That's a learning. I can learn from it. I definitely won't do it again. But it's also the thing about fishing the BFLs and what's so hard about throwing the Alabama rig is, like you just don't know. Sometimes it starts spinning on you. And like those fish are coming at it so fast and they hit it so hard, they just lock in at the last second. They just eat one of them, I think. Sometimes they
Yeah.
really do get the back one, the bigger one. I normally put a 3.8 in the middle and then all 3.3s. And I try to put the one in the middle like that stands out a little bit more. So they get that one a good amount, but for some reason, sometimes if it spins, they might eat one of those side dummies. So
Yeah,
it's
kind of out of
tough.
your control.
Yeah, it's really tough, and it definitely flusters you during the tournament. Um, because I had one eat it. He knocked it, and I threw right back in there, and he hit it again, and he didn't hit one of the other ones. So it's just like, it's just not a good break. Um, but kind of yeah. So I missed two fish on it. Kind of fast forward, I pull back into the same pocket that I caught kind of like two of my fish. So I did catch one like on the point, but I also caught one that kind of more back in the pocket. So I kind of went back into the same pocket. At that point in that pocket, that water was all the way up to 52 degrees. So I really think the sun was really beaming in that pocket and the wind was pushing into that pocket too. Um, so I go back into the same pocket, same bank that I caught one on earlier, and I ended up catching one probably close to 4 pounds. And this was probably 3 o'clock. So I don't have much time. I just put a really good one in the boat. That really fueled me to keep going, and I was fired up. Um, and I ended up catching another one in like 30 minutes, I think. So I got five. I don't know what I have. I didn't even look at them. So I got five, but and at this point it's 3 o'clock, and it seems like every little corner, every little they're not really even like points. They're kind of just like little baby points. Like any little outcropping in the bank, it seems like I could get a bite on one. So, I mean, I went down the bank for about the next 15 minutes after catching that fish, and I probably had 4 bites. And I caught like 14 inchers. But I filled
Yeah,
my limit.
it's almost like those fish that we saw on Friday that were scurrying around some of those points. It's almost like when the sun came up and it started heating up the water. It seems like those fish got active for you.
Yeah, they got really active, and I think they slid up really shallow. And I think like the one I caught was the one that was close to 4 was definitely a pre-spawner. I mean, she was really fat. She's probably up there just trying to warm up. Um, but yeah, no, they definitely got active, and they really there was a little window there. They started feeding. So I mean, I had another opportunity like right before like I went to check in. It's probably like 3:40, and I was just going down another bank in the same area, and I saw one come out and it just ran through the rig. Um, I don't even think he opened his mouth. I think he literally just ran through it. I think he just tried to kill it, and it was probably a 3 pounder. So, it sucks, but you really can't do anything. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it ended up having, just shy of 12 pounds, easily probably could have had, if I caught two more decent fish, I probably would have had around 14-ish. So, I mean, ended 36. That was my first BFL as a boater. So, I think, I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, for going into that tournament, I really did not know where I was going to catch a fish or if I was going to catch one. So I kind of stuck to it.
Yeah, no, that was really impressive considering it was your first BFL. I mean, there's like a lot of pressure with it being your first one. And there's a lot of good anglers that were there that struggled. So the fact that you put five fish in the boat, a couple good ones, I mean, that was a really good showing.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, dude, like, there's so many guys out there that fish like so much on Smith, and there's guys that are there like all the time, and there's guys that have been fishing the BFLs for years and they struggled. So I mean, it shows that you just got to go out there and fish hard. So I mean, it's like in those windy days. I mean, you kind of just got to go fish. It's kind of hard to like get out there and be like all cutesy with them. So you kind of just got to put your head down
Right.
and go. But
So you got anything else to say about that?
no, I mean, no, I mean, it was a good tournament.
Yeah.
It was definitely, I'm happy we went. Brandon had a really good showing too, and he made some money. I think I missed making a check by maybe 10 spots or something.
Yeah, it was a good outing for the boys. But
Yep.
definitely, I think what you learned on Saturday definitely segued into Sunday. So we went down to Lake Anna, fished a little tournament, Fishtails tournament. You guys know Dave up there at Fishtails. He's a good dude. You guys should come and fish those. They're fun. But yeah, I think some of the stuff you learned on Saturday, you turned around and used it on Sunday, and we caught a pretty good bag. I mean, I was back there just net ready all day because I wasn't doing much. But you can go ahead and talk about what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, once you throw that rig around so much, you kind of just get a feel for it. You kind of just get it dialed in. But yeah, Sunday, the Anna tournament. Yeah, that was one we were definitely like had on our calendar because, you know, I really like the fish in the pre-spawn. And I think it's my strength. Um, so I was really excited that one, and I felt like if there was a time for us to do well in a tournament together, it could be the one in March. So this is kind of a long story, but I mean, I can start from the beginning. Um, we take off and, we're gonna run down south and we don't know what we're gonna do. Uh, and I end up blowing my power head on, my Merc. So that's always fun to start the morning off like that. So yeah, engine's down. We're just right by the bridge at Anna Point, so we didn't go too far. Um, so I was like, it's not turning on. I don't know what to do. At that point, I'm like pretty much about to spin out, and I'm
I'm
sure
su-
Brandon was like, "Holy shit!"
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you kept it together, dude. I thought you were about to just pack it up and go.
Yeah, pretty much the first thought was, I guess we're just gonna go put it on the trailer because I just blew up my engine, and I bought this boat last year and it was a used boat, so I mean, things happen and they go. So yeah, right now I don't have a boat, can't fish. I signed up for a couple more of the BFLs, so probably not going to be fishing those this year. I might jump in one as a co. We'll see, just for fun, might as well. But yeah, no, the Anna thing. So we ended up just kind of trolling up to the bridge, and I said, all right, well, I'm just going to start fishing around a little bit, and I start panning around with active target, and I see a couple sitting out there suspended, and I just threw the A rig over the top of their heads, and little one comes up and eats it. So I mean, I'm kind of just messing around, but we put a fish in the box, and I'm like, all right, well, we got one, so I'm like, let's just fish it. So you know, I was just idling with the engine, and probably shouldn't have been idling all day. Probably made it worse, but it was already blown at that point. So I said, let's just fish. So we idled up the lake a little bit, and there's guys sitting off all the points. So we said, all right, well, let's just pull over to this bank and just start fishing. We'll just kind of start making our way up to the splits up north, and we have all day. So let's just kind of take our time, and we'll get up there eventually. We'll just be on the trolling motor and just kind of work our way up. Um, and I think the first spot we stopped on, I skipped the chatterbait up near a dock, and one that was probably close to 4 pounds ate it. So first cast under a dock, chatterbait, a good one eats it. Brandon gets in the net. Now we got two fish in the box. So that one was probably, we're not going to probably have to cull that fish. So that was pretty cool. I mean, this is the first 15 minutes in the tournament. So we have two fish in the first 15 minutes. So we're like, all right, well, let's just keep fishing, I guess.
It
Um,
turned around real quick.
yeah, like it felt like really good to get him in the boat, but I'm like, I was still flustered the whole day. because my boat blew up. But we kind of keep fishing, and you know, we're seeing fish out on live scope, and I'm messing around with them a little bit, but it's so hard to tell. I mean, there's so many crappie in those lakes, and I'm probably just messing with crappie. So I said, all right, well, the wind started to pick up a little bit, and I said, let's just turn it off. Let's just go fish. So the wind started picking up on one bank, and I just start throwing the A rig down the bank, and one eats it right away. So we got 3 fish in the boat right there. It wasn't a big one. I think we ended up calling it out later, but 3 fish in the boat. You know, first 30 minutes. I mean, we're like already like kind of like relaxed. I mean, we got our fish in the boat. We just need to get 2 more. I think we fished for the next hour and a half without a bite.
Yeah, we went on a pretty long lull until you got a little flurry there.
Yeah. So I think what we were fishing, we kind of went down like some like steeper, bluffier banks, and I think had 1 bite. It probably ate. It just didn't get the rig, but you know, kind of like how I caught my fish at Smith, it was kind of like on those little rounder points, and they're not like the big main lake points. They're like more subtle points. So the first little subtle windblown point that we pulled up on, I caught 2 off that point. So that filled our limit. And the one fish was probably a 3.5 pounder. It was a pre-spawner. She was really fat. So that was a really good fish. And they were eating it kind of way off the point. So I mean, we kind of just said, wow, I mean, like that's the deal. Like they're really eating it off the points. Um, so we probably had 11, 12 pounds. I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, nothing, we're not gonna make any money with that. So we're like, all right, we got to keep going. And in Grant, we were fishing behind people the whole day, I think too.
Yeah, I mean, we just didn't have the mobility, so we were pretty much just following everyone else around.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we kind of went up the lake a little bit more, and then we fished behind some people, and we didn't get any bites. Um, and then at that point, we kind of started making our way back down. Trying to think where we.
So we eventually made our way up to one of those. So I don't know, I'm gonna spill your juice anyways, but we pulled up to that bluff where you had
Oh
jacked
yeah,
them earlier in the year.
yeah, yeah. So we fished. Yeah, it's a just like a steeper bank on Anna, and we didn't get any bites going down the steeper stuff, and we've been talking about it like we're not catching them on this stuff anymore. So I was catching them there, earlier in the fall, um, but they're just not there anymore. And as we made our way back in the pocket, I kind of put the rig down, and I picked up like a little crank. I picked up like a rock crawler, like a red rock crawler. And, I think like second cast with that, I catch one, and it was actually got my bait snagged on a rock, and it actually ate it off the rock. So, I mean, it wasn't a big one or anything, but it was still like, okay, well, they did eat it. Um, I think it might have cold out one.
Yeah, it did. It may have even kept that fish at the end. I don't know, but it was still like a 2.5 pounder or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, catch that fish, and then probably 5 minutes later, um, I'm just going down the bank, and it is a bank and going leading into a pocket. So kind of like, not at the very top of the pocket, like we're in the pocket at this point. So, it was a bank that had some riprap on it, and it was a ton of sun heating up on that bank, and ended up catching one that was like a 450 off that bank, like within the next 5 minutes. So that was a pretty good one. It had the crankbait like sideways. I mean, like she ate it.
Yeah.
So that was really a fish we needed to get in the boat. I mean, that was a really good one. So at that point, we had a pretty decent bag. We definitely knew like, hey, like if we get like one more, like we got a chance. So we fished. So we ended up getting out of there, and we kind of just made our way kind of closer to, like Anna Point, really. And we kind of just started fishing like some of those like clay banks. It's something that I really don't ever really fish at Anna.
I never fished it either.
But there's guys like littered. There's guys like fishing like on these clay banks at Anna that day, like everywhere. So like we ended up fishing, and we actually started catching. Brandon started catching a few on a swim bait behind me. They were small, but like we were getting bites.
Yeah.
And we kind of kept going a little bit, and we pulled up on ones. We thought we could catch them in the guts, but we actually didn't, which I was surprised.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I mean, like those banks had like little they had little baby like round points on them, like throughout the.
Yeah. Same kind
Yeah.
of deal that you've been catching them on the rig, honestly.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, I was still throwing the rig, and Brandon was throwing the rock crawler behind me, and Brandon ended up catching one of those, probably, I don't know, it was probably a 2.5 pounder, dude, and it probably gave us a pound. It probably gave us a pound upgrade. So it was huge. I mean, that was at the end of the day, and that was like that's probably what won us a tournament. So, we ended up idling back in, and we were kind of nervous to make it back in because I couldn't really go too fast. So honestly, I had no idea what we had. It wasn't a giant bag. I mean, we've caught bigger bags on Anna, but it was definitely it was a solid day for not having an engine and just kind of just mobbing around and figuring it out. We kind of just fished really free. So,
Yeah.
that's what makes good days, is going out there with no real plan. You kind of just go fish we really kind of just fished the conditions, and we fished like what we thought looked good like that day. So like we didn't fish like history or anything. We just fished. And that's why we probably did well. But yeah, no, I think we had it was 1697 or something. It was just about 17 pounds. So I mean, it took 17 pounds to win, and we ended up winning that tournament. So it was a fun tournament. First little win for me on Anna too. So that's cool.
Yeah, it was a good time. Even though I was on the net most of the day. I wish I had my GoPro so we could have caught you trying to net my fish.
Oh yeah. Yeah, his fish, I guess I was a little rusty on the net, but this fish like tried to jump away from me. It's pretty wild, but we got him in the boat. That's all that matters.
We got him.
Those triple grips aren't going to let him go.
That's right. Yeah, that's a little plug for y'all. Throw those number 6 triple grips on that rock crawler.
Yeah, they're good hooks. Yeah, no, the rock crawler I was throwing it was actually the small one, which was kind of interesting. I never really thrown it. But I was throwing the small. It was a rock crawler 50 DD, so it was the small one, but it still dove like 12 feet. So it was a cool little bait.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm always throwing the 55, but that 50 was definitely a deal. They liked it.
Yeah, A-rig was a big player. It's on Anna, it seems like they really get on that rig sometimes. They definitely chew it there.
Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for what we got out there. But you got anything else to plug in there? Any
no, I mean,
TikTok? You want to talk about your TikTok?
yeah, you guys can go give me a follow on my TikTok page. It's called DG Fishing. So I just started that, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or something, but yeah, no, it's fun. We post some videos. Posted a video from Smith, and trying to get some more content out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're out there all the time. We might as well put it out there. I'll try to make sure I have my GoPro next time. I was a little lazy about that. It would have been cool if we had it out there on Sunday, but it is what it is. So
Probably would have been bad luck.
Yeah, we probably would have caught like 2 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude. So happy to have we had, but boat's blown up. So if anybody knows where to get help for that, let me know, because I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, please. If anyone actually does know some good stuff, reach out. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully, you guys learned a thing or two from DG. And we'll catch you all next time.
Thanks for having me on, man.